What if I told you that the difference between someone who masters a skill in 6 months and someone who struggles for years usually isn't talent? It's not IQ. It's not motivation. It's not even how many hours they practice. It's how they learn. Most of us spend years in school, but almost nobody teaches us how learning actually works. We memorize, highlight, reread the same page over and over, then forget most of it a week later. The funny part is that your brain already has an incredibly efficient learning system. You just probably haven't been shown how to use it. So if you want to learn a language, build a business, play an instrument, code an app, or master almost any skill, these are the principles that make the biggest difference. The first principle is something called the 80-20 rule. The idea is simple. Around 80% of your results come from roughly 20% of what you're learning. Most beginners make the same mistake. They try to learn everything at once. If you're learning a language, they memorize thousands of random vocabulary words. If they're learning to cook, they jump straight into complicated recipes. If they're learning to code, they try to understand every programming language before writing a single useful program. But experts usually do the opposite. They identify the small number of skills that create the biggest improvement, and they master those first. When you're learning a language, the 1,000 most common words cover the majority of everyday conversations. When you're learning to draw, understanding perspective and basic shapes matters far more than tiny details. When you're learning guitar, mastering a handful of chords lets you play hundreds of songs. Focus on the fundamentals first. The advanced stuff becomes much easier afterward. The second principle feels completely backwards. If you want to learn faster, fail faster. Most people avoid mistakes because mistakes feel like proof that they're bad at something, but your brain actually learns the most when it makes an error and then immediately corrects it. Neuroscientists call this error-based learning. When your prediction is wrong, your brain pays attention. It updates its internal model. That's why struggling to remember an answer before looking it up helps you remember it much longer than simple rereading the page 5 times. This is why one of the most effective study techniques is active recall. Instead of reading your notes again, close the book. Now try explaining the idea out loud from memory. Pretend you're teaching someone else. The moment you get stuck, you found the exact thing your brain needs to practice. Those moments feel frustrating, but they are actually where the learning happens. The third principle is surprisingly simple. Stop multitasking. Your brain isn't designed to master 5 different skills at once. Every time you switch between tasks, your brain wastes energy trying to refocus. Psychologists call this attention residue. Part of your attention stays behind on the previous task, making it harder to fully focus on the next one. Instead, isolate one small skill. If you're learning photography, spend one session only practicing composition. If you're learning public speaking, spend today only working on eye contact. Improve one thing at a time. Small improvements stack much faster than scattered effort. The fourth principle is something many people completely ignore. Sleep. When you practice a skill, your brain doesn't finish learning during practice. A huge part of the learning happens while you're asleep. During deep sleep, your brain strengthens important neural connections and removes weaker ones. It's almost like your brain is organizing everything you learned during the day. That's why staying up all night studying often gives worse results than getting a good night's sleep. Learning isn't just about putting information in. It's also about giving your brain time to organize it. And finally, there's one mindset that ties everything together. Stop asking, "Am I good at this?" Instead ask, "Am I better than I was yesterday?" Every expert was once terrible. Nobody was born speaking a language. Nobody was born playing piano. Nobody was born writing software or building businesses. The people who eventually become great simply stay in the learning cycle longer than everyone else. They focus on the fundamentals. They make mistakes quickly. They test themselves instead of endlessly reviewing. They practice one skill at a time, and they give their brains time to recover. Learning isn't a talent, it's a system. Once you understand how that system works, almost anything becomes easier to master. If this messed with your head a little, subscribe. There's more like this coming.